When James and I were first getting into Magic the Gathering, I went through a phase of setting myself the task of building a deck with certain specific parameters. And the main rule I gave myself across the board was that I could only build the decks from cards that we already have. This was because we had gone a bit mad when we first got into the game and got a lot of booster packs and gained quite a few cards. And also because cards cost money and I didn't have very much at the time. So I played around with this concept and I built a few decks. Most of them I quickly just took apart again because I wasn't into the idea, or I played it and I didn't really enjoy it. But one of them stuck. I'm a green and white kind of gal. When I first started playing, those were the colours that I enjoyed the playstyle of the most, and the first deck that I built was a green and white enchantment deck, which I still have and play regularly. But I was like, hey, you know what would be fun? Is a black and white deck, only using the creature types vampire and cleric, because clerics give life and vampires take life. And I just thought that was a really fun idea. So I made it. I originally built it in standard format, played it a few times and it was fun, but then me and James got more into Commander and James was like, hey, why don't you just expand it into a Commander deck, seeing as we play Commander way more? And I was like, okay. So I took it apart. I kept a lot of the original ones I had in there, but obviously only one copy of each of them because that's how it is in Commander. And I trawled through all the rest of the cards we already had, which was way more at this point because we just kept buying packs. And I managed to get it to 100 cards. So I ended up choosing il-kor Sadistic Pilgrim as my commander. For some reason, when I first got this card, I just was weirdly obsessed with it. She's just really freaking cool looking. And of course, she matches the whole theme of giving life and taking life, etc, etc. So I've played a few games with this deck now and it is really fun. I do love the concept. It's quite different to the other decks that I run at the moment, but it quickly became evident that it's not hugely powerful. It tends to pack a punch quite early on with lots of little pokes to your opponents and bumping up your own life total gradually, but it runs out of steam quite quickly. I realized that what was stopping it from really popping off was the lack of creatures entering the battlefield and then subsequently creatures dying, because my commander reads, whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life. Whenever another creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life. So she's not really living up to her full potential unless you have loads of creatures entering and then loads of creatures dying. So I was like, cool, this gives me a specific aim for upgrading this deck. I need it to make lots of tokens. So I went through our horde of cards again and I found a few that would work with it, but then I went on to EDH Rec, great website. You can type in your commander and it will show you all of the best cards that work for that commander. So I set myself a budget. I was only allowed to spend X amount on this order because, you know, living is expensive these days and I'm not made of money. So I think there are only 4, maybe 5 cards that cost me more than £1. And that order has arrived. You coming to check out my new cards, Luca? Got a few black cards in this deck. Thank you! So let's go through the highlights of these black and white cards so you can see the kind of thing I'm going for with the deck. Spirit Bonds. This is a great enchantment. Every time a non-token creature enters the battlefield under my control, I have the option to pay 1 white mana to also put a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying on the battlefield. So that obviously creates a double trigger for my whenever a creature enters the battlefield cards. Emergency Weld. This specific card doesn't bring the creature from the graveyard to the battlefield, it brings it to your hand, but still, it's the best of both because it returns a creature from the graveyard and it creates a token. Martial Coup. Its first purpose is to give you some tokens, but if you choose to get 5 or more tokens, it also destroys all other creatures. So it's nice to have a not completely empty battlefield after a board wipe. Field of Souls, another nice little enchantment. Again, it's all about the creatures entering the battlefield and then dying and then coming back to the battlefield and then dying. You see where I'm going with this. This allows me to create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying whenever a non-token creature goes to the graveyard. Lunarch Veteran. So he's good because both of his forms gain me life either when a creature enters the battlefield or when a creature leaves the battlefield. Kaya, Geist Hunter. We love a planeswalker. She's awesome because her +1 ability buffs my other creatures and tokens. Her -2 ability doubles the amount of tokens that I get in that turn, and her -6 exiles all graveyards and gives me a token for every single card exiled in that way, which if you're in a 4-player commander game, is probably going to be quite a few tokens. Flesh Taker, this creepy cow man. It's all well and good having lots of creatures and tokens enter the battlefield, but I can't always guarantee that those creatures and tokens are gonna die. So I figured it might be key to give myself a few ways to sacrifice tokens and creatures. Mostly tokens, because obviously my creatures are good and useful. Warlock class. These are really cool types of cards. So its level 1 causes each opponent to lose 1 life if a creature died this turn, which is pretty likely. Its level 2 lets me look at the top 3 cards of my library, put 1 into my hand, and the other 2 go into the graveyard, which I'm then hoping I'll be able to get back out of the graveyard. And its 3rd level causes each opponent to lose life equal to the amount of life they lost during my turn, which I'm hoping is going to be quite a lot. Kaya's Wrath. Destroy all creatures. You gain life equal to the number of creatures you control that were destroyed this way. If you're going to use a board wipe, you might as well try and make it one that benefits you as well. Teysa Karlov. She gives all my creature tokens Vigilance and Lifelink, which is pretty badass already. But whenever a creature dying triggers one of my card's abilities, she makes it trigger again. One of my creatures died, so you each lose a life. Oh, and now it happens again. Ha 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 ha. Sanguine Bond. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. Unearth. Another one that gets me a card back from the graveyard. And this really cool borderless alternative art was only a few pence more, so I got it. Reassembling Skeleton. Unless this dude is exiled, I can just keep bringing him back. Elspeth. Sun's Nemesis. The recommended Elspeth Planeswalker card was actually Sun's Champion, but that was quite expensive. So I went for this one instead, which is still good. Increasing Devotion, a very powerful token creating sorcery card. We love to see it. Grey Merchant of Asphodel. Everyone else loses life and I gain life. What's not to like? Agent of the Iron Throne. So this gives my commander, whenever an artifact or creature you control is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life. It's just reinforcing that whole, life gain, life drain thing that we've got going on. The entire focus of the deck. Two black and 2 white for Kaya's Wrath. Destroy all creatures. And I gain life equal to the number of creatures I controlled that were destroyed this way. Whenever another creature I control dies, each opponent loses 1 life. Yeah. And then I gain 4 life from them dying. Beginning of my end step. If a creature died this turn, each opponent loses 1 life. Overall, this deck is shaping up to be really fun. It's definitely still a work in progress, but I've really enjoyed playing it, so I'm happy to invest more into it. The main place I think it's still lacking is creatures entering and leaving the battlefield. I have a lot of cards that trigger when this happens, but not enough cards that actually make it happen. I've played several games since upgrading the deck, and it's played differently each time, which is fun because it gives variety and has helped inform me of what works and what doesn't, but it also means that it's not very reliable and it only runs at a low percentage of what its full power could be. And also sometimes it just completely bricks if I don't pull the right card combos. Ultimately, it needs more work, but I really like it. I love the process of building a deck, testing how it plays, switching cards in and out, having those moments where you manage an insane combo and think, this is what I built this deck to do. If you're a Magic player, what's a favorite deck you've built? And if you're not a Magic player, I hope you enjoyed listening to nonsense for the past 10 minutes. Thanks for watching. Bye!